Welcome to My Art in Life. My name is Lawrence Spiro.
And I'm Gary Piacentini.
Today we have the joy of speaking with Linda Maria Frank. What you're going to listen to right now is a book she wrote called Secrets in the Fairy Chimneys.
At first, I felt lucky that I got to go on an archaeological adventure, digging up bones and artifacts with my boyfriend Ty for his college project. But weird things started happening. Treasures were disappearing, so we talked to those who had eyes and ears everywhere, the project director's twins. I went with Ty and his best friend Cedric to the fabulous bazaar in Istanbul and encountered a very angry and suspicious woman. Was she the one sending me threatening messages? There are many secrets in the fairy chimneys of Cappadocia, secrets someone is willing to kill for. And this simple archaeological dig is getting more dangerous by the day. I'm not even sure the good guys are so good anymore. Ty and Cedric and I are trying to keep the twins safe, but they may know too much, or not as much as they think they do. Either way, we have to get to the bottom of this mystery before we're in so deep no one can dig us out. And I'm not kidding, these caves are deep and dangerous.
Some nice
Okay,
writing.
I'll buy a copy right now.
Okay, good.
Here you go. We have one
10
here.
copies.
Well, that's the third book in your series so far.
Yes.
The first was the Madonna Ghost, which I read. Girl with the Pencil Drawing, and I read that. And Secrets in the Fairy Chimneys, which we just heard, and I read that too, and I enjoyed them very much. These are aimed at teens. What age?
Actually,
What is your audience for this book?
In doing work with kids, because I do a mystery writers workshop, and I was a teacher all my life, so most everything I do has to do with schools. I find that it's advanced elementary readers through about 9th grade, and then women my age love them because they're evocative of Nancy Drew.
Yeah, they're evocative of Nancy Drew. Even the way it works out and the mysteries of the Hardy Boys.
I love the Hardy Boys.
There's a terrific series. That was my thing, I guess.
I was in love with Joe Hardy, so.
You're right.
So was Nancy Drew, by the way.
But the Hardy Boys,
Forget Ned.
unlike Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys were actually something that, what's his name, Edward Stratemeyer dreamed of, and then had other ghostwriters come in under the name of Dixon. You write your own stuff, though.
I do. I do it all. I do every bit of it. Research, ideas, writing.
So the Ann Tillery Mystery Series is all you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No ghostwriters. Although I have to tell you, I love coming up with the ideas, and I love doing the research, and the writing is my least favorite part.
But, when I read the Hardy Boys, there is a theme in your books. It's really of an adult nature that is far different than what I read as a young teen. And that is like a mother who's an alcoholic, a father who's never there, at least in the first 2 books. The third book, he shows up pretty well. How is that received by your audience? Have you gotten any feedback from that?
I actually have done a few book circle talks, book club talks with the first book. And it's well received because it's something that modern day children experience. They have parents who are drug addicts who are, it's either prescription drugs or something else, or they're alcoholics. And there's a very enlightened attitude towards this kind of stuff today. So they're very happy to see something that they can relate to. So I have never gotten any negative feedback on that. And as you well know, in the Madonna Ghost, Ty's father is an alcoholic responsible for his mother's death, Ty's mother's death, because he was smoking in bed and drinking. And she died and he didn't, and he's in a mental institution.
And in the first book, Anne's mom She didn't want any part of her or any part of her father. But that's softened through the other books.
Yeah, well, what happens
She
is...
kind of dropped out in the third book, the mother. But the father showed up relatively strong in the third book.
Right. Well, Mommy doesn't show up until the fourth book, which isn't out yet. And then
And when will that be out?
in about 2 weeks.
Great. 2 weeks would be the end of June of 2016.
Yes, I'm hoping to have the books by then. So,
and the name of that book will be?
The Mystery of the Lost Avenger, and it's a ghost story about Annie's great-grandmother, who was a woman's air service pilot, they were called WASPs, during World War II, and she was a test pilot for Grumman, for the Grumman Avenger.
Okay.
And Annie's aunt was also a detective.
She's a New York City police detective. That's how Annie gets into trouble. In one of the books, I won't tell you which one, Annie has to get into an attic, and she's not breaking and entering because it's a home that she has every right to be there, and they can't find the key, so she pulls out of her pocketbook her lockpick set that one of the friends of her aunt has given her as a birthday present.
Well, who was your inspiration for these characters, anyway?
For Annie, the inspiration, Annie and Tyler Egan is the boyfriend. Mm-hmm. She meets him in the first book, and they are fast friends, and eventually, well, I won't tell you what happened eventually. But at any rate, it was my students.
Really?
Yeah,
Nice.
I had, I won an award for inspiring girls to go into science because that was my big push. I wanted to be a doctor, and when I was in school, it was very difficult for a girl to get into medical school unless daddy or grandpa or uncle was a doctor. Mm-hmm. And so I became a teacher. And
in what field? What field?
Oh, chemistry, biology, forensic science.
Aha.
So I had the ability to inspire the girls to go into science, and I had a lot of fun with my students. I really enjoyed teaching, and so I wanted to create a girl who was a role model for my students, and I drew characteristics from the girls I had. You know, they were daring, they were fearless. Because by the time I had these girls, you know, things had changed drastically, and girls had a lot of opportunities. Tyler is the boyfriend every girl should have because he's a friend first. He cares about her. He has her best interest at heart. And so I wanted girls to see that that's what a boyfriend is. It isn't somebody who takes you out drinking every night or whatever it is that, you know, because I taught in high school for a long time, so I got to be familiar with the culture. And I thought girls really need to know what a good boyfriend is.
Yeah, Tyler is a good guy.
Yeah, he is.
Supportive.
I did a workshop with a bunch of Girl Scouts, and they looked at me and they said, "Where did you get Ty from?"
My son's name is Tyler, by the way.
No, it was
He's
very
a good kid.
Yeah.
Let's go with the name. Let's go back a little bit. It's fascinating to see. It's not really a career change because you wrote a lot as a scientist, as a science teacher, and you taught in the high school and in the college level at our school, Hofstra, and you graduated from St. John's. You said.
I did.
So, how were those writing skills demonstrated when you were teaching science? What did you do?
I wrote a lot of curriculum. And I was always a teacher who was into hands-on and also liked to connect the world with science. In other words, what was going on when, Mendel discovered that peas had genes or whatever.
Levi's?
And that was like 1860.
Levi's, right?
There was a lot of stuff
Calvin
going
Klein.
on in 1860.
Yeah.
So I like to connect it. And so I would write stories. Some of them were a little apocryphal, but others were, they were the truth. And so when I would write up a lesson, there would always be a background to it. And I started to make up stories. I started to make up stories about my students. I would have the chemist of the month, and I would pick some poor child.
Like the one about Isaac Newton.
Yeah, well, the one about Isaac
that's
Newton
funny.
is that, I claimed that fig Newtons were named after Isaac Newton. I said that instead of the apple falling on his head, it was a fig, and they were very poor, and all he had to eat were biscuits, and the fig fell into the biscuit, and he really thought it was tasty. Went home to his wife. They contacted National Biscuit Company, and there you go. And the kids would just sit there and shake their heads.
Teary-eyed about the poverty.
Nabisco over here, Nabisco over there, right?
And if you want to know why kids don't know anything about history, that's the reason.
That's it.
But and then once I started teaching forensic science, I created a project whereby they had to read a little story, extract the clues, and create a court scene like Law and Order, where they created a suspect. They took the clues. They showed in court with expert witnesses how that evidence would be processed, and the class would be the jury. I was the judge, and they would have to convict this poor person. So it got the kids really interested. And then some of the topics that I picked are very interesting to me. For instance, Girl with Pencil Drawing is all about art forgery. The backstory in Girl with Pencil Drawing is the same as Monuments Men. It's what the Nazis did with the art that they confiscated. Mm-hmm. And so there's history there, and I love that topic. And Secrets in the Fairy Chimneys takes place at an archaeological dig. I love ancient mysteries. So these kinds of topics were really what I put in my books and wanted to write about. The first book, The Madonna Ghost, I was a volunteer at Fire Island Lighthouse. I used to give the lecture about what the United States Life Saving Service did when there was a shipwreck off Long Island, and that was the idea behind the Madonna Ghost. This has nothing to do with the singer. The Madonna Ghost is a mother, and I love Fire Island. I had a sailboat for about 10 years, and I spent a lot of time on Fire Island. And I wanted to capture what it was like to fall in love and what it was like to sail. And all of that is in that book.
It is, yeah. Also, the fact that it's titled The Madonna Ghost, you are carried into believing that there is some kind of spiritual thing going on here, but I'm not going to give away the book, but it's really well done.
Thank you.
The books have a level of violence.
Yes, they do.
They have, it's not something that is just politically correct and vanilla. There's emotions going on. There's physical violence going on. There's.
I joke. I say the fourth book is the first book that Annie doesn't get a concussion in.
Yeah.
Truly.
And it's you. And there's a lot of male violence against women.
Mm-hmm. It's the real world.
It's to see it is the representation of the real world.
But what I'm trying to show there is that girls are strong and girls are smart, and even though guys are stronger, they can still navigate their way through the world by using their wits.
Yeah, at the end of each book, Annie really shows her character and strength. Mm-hmm. In many dimensions. Great, really well-written book. I usually don't sit and read 600 pages in a week, between all three books, but I did, and I found it a very delightful read. I'll give you you spoke about your favorite books. What are some of your favorite books?
My favorite books, I really love Charles Dickens from the time I was in the 10th grade, and we read A Tale of Two Cities, and I progressed on to read a few more, and then Channel 13, of course, does them all.
Nicholas Nickleby.
Yeah, I love them because the topics that he deals with are relevant today.
These are the worst of times.
Yes, these are the best of times. Right. But he deals with alcoholism. He deals with social injustice. He deals with corrupt government. He deals with all of those things, and all of those things are relevant today. Plus, I love his characters. His characters, even just the names are so imaginative. And, of course, from a writer's standpoint, the fact that he wrote all these books in serial form and was paid by the word really impresses me.
He made a lot of money.
I look at my books sometimes and I think I should have put more words in those books.
Right,
Well,
I did that one time for the Long Island wasn't the Long Island Press, but they hired me to do writing reviews for theater companies. I actually was counting the words. Well, 104 we need, okay?
Yeah, but a lot of times when you're counting the words, it's because they want you to condense something into very little, which is, I think, harder than
I noticed on
expanding.
your website there, or whatever website they have for you there, you have a little bit of a forensic quiz. Can you solve this one?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I have a blog. The blog is connected to my website. Everything's connected to my website. My website is just my name. And then I have the blog is AnnieTilleryMysteries.com.
I see.
And then I have a few other things too. But I'm on Cold Coffee Cafe. I'm on the Writer's Den, the
You're
Author's
also
Den.
on, you have your own internet TV show, right?
I do.
Tell us about that.
It's called The Writer's Dream. And
Oh, well, we're going to get back into that like after this segment here. My fault. You're listening to My Art and Life with Lauren Spiro, Gary Piacentini, and Linda Maria Frank. Okay? WCWP 88.1 FM, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to My Art in Life. My Art in Life is hosted by the Town of Oyster Bay Arts Council. We are speaking with Linda Maria Frank, and we've been discussing her really excellent books. We're going to hear a clip now read from The Madonna Ghost, which is her first book, Girl with Pencil, Drawing, which is her second book.
When my Aunt Jill suggested going to Fire Island for a relaxing getaway, I was all for it. After all, I could get away from my parents and all the stress they cause and enjoy some sun and sailing. I'm an amateur detective whose senses told me that my aunt was hiding something, but I didn't expect to fall into a mystery or fall for our host's nephew. Strange things are occurring by the boardwalk and at our neighbor's cottage. The people there are always on edge. Will I be able to piece together the scattered history around a local ghost legend before another, more dangerous mystery turns to tragedy? Living in New York has its benefits, including being able to attend art classes at a famous art museum. I liked my instructor Francesca right away, but she was the type that trouble seemed to follow. That trouble led us into a discovery within the world of art forgery and put us in some real high-stakes danger. And with each clue, we just find ourselves getting deeper and deeper. Will these art lessons end up being the death of me?
Okay, I'll buy that too.
okay.
Yeah.
Where did The Madonna Ghost take place?
Madonna Ghost takes place on Fire Island and Bayshore, Long Island.
Are you familiar with Fire Island Bayshore?
Yes, Fire Island is. I had a sailboat at one time, and we would go to Fire Island often. I had been to Fire Island before the sailboat because there's a sunken forest, and now I just go over to Fire Island to have dinner in the summertime because it's like a mini vacation. There are no cars. I have a friend who lives permanently year-round on Fire Island, and she is the adult education director for the schools. So I get to do my lecture series and whatnot in the adult ed
What
program.
side, the public side or the private side of Fire Island?
What do you mean?
Yeah, there's two sides basically. There's the public beach, Robert Moses Causeway. And,
Oh, no.
yeah.
This is Ocean Beach.
Ocean
Oh,
Beach,
the
right.
only school on Fire Island is Ocean Beach. And it's an elementary school. Once the kids reach middle school, they have to be bused to Bayshore.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's how I get to the lecture series at night. And if you ever want to have a thrilling ride, you ride along the beach at night in the winter when it's raining or snowing past the lighthouse. Talk about atmosphere. So to me, Fire Island has always been atmosphere and the deer roaming around. And it's a beautiful place. It's a different place. No cars. No.
And this is really a different kind of story with a lot of mystery and detective work going on by Anne.
Well, Fire Island has also a history of a lot of crime going on. You know, during Prohibition, that's where they brought in the Scotch. and there's dope smuggling. I mean, it's on the coast. And then there was piracy in the beginning in colonial times. In fact, that's one of the theories of how Fire Island got its name, that what would happen is there was a natural inlet, probably the Fire Island Inlet. And what the pirates would do is there was no lighthouse, so at night they would build a fire on both sides of the inlet to show ships where to come in. And then what the pirates would do is shift one of the fires so that the boat would beach. And then, of course, it would break up on the sandbar, and then they would loot the ship.
Wow.
Smart guys.
Well, you know, the people who first colonized this country
Very smart.
were
Bunch of pirates.
They were entrepreneurial.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
Much intrigue in the Madonna Ghost. Much intrigue, international intrigue as well.
And I wrote that before. I won't even say what date. I don't want to give the plot away because the ghost is really hiding a plot.
Yeah.
She is she's a local ghost story. And in the beginning of the story, Ty and Annie and Ty and the whole group of people, Uncle Doc, who's based on a real person, by the way, and Auntie go off they're sailing in the boat. And
Auntie's the cop.
Auntie Cop. Auntie Cop, Uncle Doc. Uncle Doc was a former CIA agent. See, I have to put all these people. I have to put all these people in there because that's where the connections are, you know. So, but they're sailing and they're having a good time. And then Annie asks about, are there any local ghost stories? And so then you find out the story of the Madonna Ghost. She is the victim of a shipwreck.
Yeah.
And my inspiration for that was when I worked at the Fire Island Lighthouse, because there were pictures. If you go upstairs, there's one room that has stuff about shipwrecks. And there's this picture of people handing out hot coffee to survivors of a shipwreck. And I'm looking at this. That's where I got the inspiration for the ghost. So Ty says to Annie, he says, I've seen the ghost. Annie looks at Ty like, you're nuts. Okay, but she doesn't say that because she likes him. And
at the time she thinks he's cute.
But, you know, he sees the expression on her face. He says, okay, forget it. You don't have to, you know, it's all right. You don't have to believe in it. And she's, no, I want to see the ghost. Can I see the ghost? So they see the ghost. There's a local historian, and she's not only a local historian, but she's a bit like into the spirit world. So they see the ghost. And the ghost keeps disappearing. And at
no more.
At the same time, other things are going on.
There's, you know, what?
Do you base your cases like on any actual case or so, like let's say like the forgery?
The Madonna Ghost is not based on anything specific, but it's based on a group of crimes that is prevalent around the world. Girl with Pencil Drawing there's a million art forgery cases. In fact, I write a short article for a newsletter for Long Island Sisters in Crime. It's called Guppies, which stands for the Great Unpublished. I don't know why. But the last one I did was on diamond heists.
Right.
You not believe, I mean, these diamonds, they're worth so much money and they have security and whatnot, and these diamond thieves manage to get around anyway. So
there's a very serious danger that Anne gets involved with. I mean, this isn't like a girl who can't find her keys. I mean, she gets very, very close to being murdered. She gets hit. There's all kinds
there's a
of
scene
stuff
on the
going
Brooklyn Bridge in Girl with Pencil Drawing takes place in Manhattan and Brooklyn, and there's a scene on the Brooklyn Bridge, sort of at the end of the book.
Maybe
that's
she should
very
take
scary.
some karate lessons, you know.
Well, no, she manages to get her way out of Everything.
I like the title.
It's a little Jackie Chan,
You know, it's
I'll suggest it to her.
Okay.
what was that book? They shoot bears and nuts.
What?
Eat, shoots, leaves, and something else. Eats, shoots, and leaves.
Eat, shoots, and leaves. And with the appropriate comma placed, it makes sense. You put in your title, girl with pencil, comma, drawing, instead of girl with pencil drawing, as opposed to somebody holding a pencil drawing.
So it's a girl with a pencil drawing.
Drawing.
Now-
And that's key to the story.
Yes. Well,
that comma.
the inspiration for that title is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. There is a picture in there of a girl, she's probably in the 1700s, sitting on a chair, looking out a window with a sketch pad.
So that would be without the comma.
No, that would be with the comma. She's a girl with a pencil drawing.
But she's also with a girl. That would go both ways because she has the pencil there too.
But you're trying to
drawing.
say she's without the comma it would be girl with a pencil drawing.
Yeah, with the pencil drawing.
Not with a pencil drawing.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
A pencil drawing. A pencil drawing of this. A sketch.
Yes. Yeah. That's.
Oh my God! I'll take a drink.
I think you've made a
Some of
breakthrough.
that H2O.
Right.
So, from the Madonna Ghost, her Anne's parents are developed. They're not so developed from what I remember.
No.
in Girl with Pencil.
Neither is
drawing.
Ty.
Nor Ty.
Ty is only through email because Ty's away at school. And she can't, they're all supposed to go skiing, but she can't now because she won these art lessons and she has to take the art lessons. So I did that on purpose because I didn't want any distraction from the story.
Yeah.
I just wanted to concentrate on this whole art thing and winter in New York.
Yeah.
Which setting is very important to me. I am inspired by setting. All of my books were inspired by setting. So that's what I like to write about. It puts me in the mood.
I'll give you a quote.
Okay.
Nancy Drew, Carolyn Keene, who wrote Nancy Drew. Do act mysterious. It always keeps them coming back for more. Can you expand on that thought as a writer?
Well,
Do act mysterious. It always keeps them coming back for more.
Well, I think that's pretty much what every mystery writer who decides to do a series wants to do is you create a character who's sympathetic. And by that I mean this is a character who you can relate to. You could see yourself struggling with the same problems and probably proceeding in the same way and hitting the same roadblocks, but they get through it. And then you make your story about something that's interesting and you keep the pages turning. And once people's adrenaline gets moving on that, they want to go to the next book.
Your chapter sizes are comfortable. You can finish a thought, in a sitting. And that actually keeps you reading because the thought is done. But wait, you refresh yourself and you come back right away to continue on.
Yeah.
One of the things I noticed, I guess you would call it form or approach in Secrets in the Fairy Chimneys, is that you started with something happening.
I always start with something happening.
But then you stopped and went into something else that then developed back to the original event. And that, in the Madonna Ghost, Girl with Pencil Drawing, it was smooth. This and continuous. This started, and then there was a break, and you're wondering, well, what happened? What happened? You're reading and reading.
Well, you have to pay attention to the dates.
Yes,
The
absolutely,
day of the week
course.
or whatever it is. But I just like that cave scene, so I decided to start with that. But the next book will drive you crazy if you didn't like that, because you keep going back and forth between the present and 1943. Because something happens in 1943 that Annie has to solve. She has to find out what it was that happened. So you keep going back and forth.
And that's in Mystery of the Lost Avenger.
Yes.
To be available the end of June,
Yes.
hopefully.
And my inspiration for that was the Cradle of Aviation Museum. That whole book takes place on Long Island and Maryland. There's a family house in Maryland. But I was in the Cradle of Aviation Museum one of those days when you could climb into the planes. And my family was off doing whatever they were doing. And I was, looking around, and I come to this plane, and there's this plaque, and the plaque talks about Rosie the Riveter and how the women, the wasps and
Right.
all the rest of it, the role of women in World War II, and how without what women did in World War II, there wouldn't have been any guns to shoot, tanks to drive, and planes to fly. So I decided to get into the plane. I climbed into the plane, and I sat there, and something just came over me. And I said, I have to write the story. I have to write a story about this.
Oh, great.
And it took me about a year to decide what the story would be. But I knew it was going to be about somebody who flew that plane in World War II.
I can't believe how small you have to be to get on those planes. I mean, I went to see the Memphis Belle over in Farmingdale, and I'm going,
Yes.
no way I can
Yes,
get into. I'm bigger
yes.
than the plane.
Yes. And the conditions, did you get into the bomber?
Yeah.
That was.
Oh God.
But the conditions inside that plane to fly in it, there's like no floor. There's
I mean, you have to be claustrophobic.
Yeah.
You would be claustrophobic.
yeah.
to get on those
You
planes.
have to be a person who likes to be in little.
Yeah.
The tail gunner.
I mean, the guys have to be like 5'2". That's it.
Yeah. It's amazing. But Long Island is the cradle of aviation.
Gary,
Yes,
when
sir.
I go onto a Ferris wheel, I panic.
Oh, I can't stand the.
I can't stand going up more than like 10 feet.
Yeah, I know.
Me too. And I'm afraid of heights, basically. But I look down. I'm going. No, I want to get back up.
You know what I think it is, though, is they had a job to do, and they were concentrating
Yeah.
on the job they were doing and not.
They were getting shot at too.
Yeah. Yes. Very interesting.
Not good.
The Madonna Ghost was, when was that published? 2013?
I think it was 11.
Or 2011?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to write it?
The first two books took me 2 years.
Each?
No, I'm sorry, a year each, a little over a year. Secrets in the Fairy Chimneys took me 2 years, and the current one is probably a little over 2 years. It took me a while to decide what the story was going to be. And then
Do you write out some kind of outline before you write a story?
absolutely, I am. Those Post-its, they're 2 feet by 3 feet? Okay, so that goes on the wall, and all the chapters go there. And then the purpose of that is when I introduce a clue, I do a flow chart.
Right.
Because in a mystery, everything has to dovetail at the end. Then I do a chapter outline of what happens in the chapters. And then I do a character profile of all my characters and where they get introduced and what their story is.
Right.
So all of this is done before I even write the book.
So this is a hard
Almost like
copy
storyboarding.
posting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very. In fact,
Do you change your mind afterwards? You say like, well, this doesn't fit?
yeah, you have to. I mean, because it all has to fit. I write my books like movies. They're movies going through my brain. And when I proofread the last book that's coming out, I said, this is a script. It's not a book. It is a book, but it's I should go into script writing. In fact, if I could ever sell the movie rights to this, they would have very little trouble converting it to a script. So, that's. I'm very organized.
Now, on the book teaser we just played, do you have any say in what they put in, like the visuals or so?
Oh, yeah. What I do is I send the woman who does this, I send her all of the visual material I have. I send her the book covers. I send her the illustrations. I send her any photographs that I have. For instance, probably in the Fire Island one, there was probably, I haven't seen it in a while, a picture of the lighthouse or a beach scene or something like that. So I send her all the visual things that I possibly can, and then she reads the book. So,
Which helps.
yes. Yeah, well, I bet some of them don't, but she reads the book, and then that enables her to, use her own photographs to make it a nice, smooth transition.
I'd like to read a small passage from Girl with Pencil Drawing.
Okie doke.
Girl with pencil drawing.
Right. Anne is going to take some art classes, and so she comes to road school, and she walks in the hallway and she hears, "No, I can't do that. It's..." The strong word stopped me like a wall. The female voice came from the only open door in the hallway. "I'm not paying you, tell me," shouted a deep male voice. I'm not paying you to tell me," shouted a deep male voice. I lost the rest of the sentence as his angry voice stopped. The sign above the door said art class. I stopped, unsure what to do. My instincts prickled, sensing the electric tone of the conflict inside the room. "You're hurting me," shrilled the female voice. With that, I decided to barge in. "Excuse me," I said, smiling. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt," I continued.
Okay. Well, you can continue like on the next segment or so. We're listening to My Art and Life with Lauren Spiro, Gary Piacentini, and Linda Maria Frank. Okay. And 88.1 FM. Chris, you may take the reins.
Welcome again to My Art in Life. We are speaking with Linda Maria Frank and talking about her books and talking about her internet TV show, how she got to this point. And I'd like to ask, what's up? What's going on? What are we going to look forward to in the future from you?
Well, the new book is coming out, so I will be promoting the new book. I haven't decided on a book launch yet. I'm going to look into doing it at the Cradle of Aviation Museum. So we'll see how that works out. I have no idea. Even if they let me do it in the gift shop, that would be fine. I have a lecture series that I do in libraries and for like Farmingdale and Hofstra. All of these local universities have continuing education. And
That's great.
so I'm doing a lecture series there and in libraries and on Fire Island. And those are topics in forensic science, how DNA technology is used, famous cases. I do one on the Lindbergh kidnapping. The latest one I have is plants, poisons, and plots. That's how, how poisons.
Arsenic.
well, mostly
Hemlock.
Hemlock better. Digitalis, foxglove, belladonna. All of these toxins that come from plants.
What an oxymoron for a name. Belladonna means beautiful woman.
Yes.
Poisonous.
But its original use was as eye drops to make
I'm
women
married,
look
I can't
sexier.
comment on that.
So that's why belladonna. And
I
it's
didn't know that, no.
and
Say
it's a
that again?
sedative.
What is it?
Its original use was as an eye drops. It dilates the pupils, and when you're in love, your pupils dilate, and so it makes the eyes shiny and the cheeks red, and so she looks like she's in love or in lust.
Maybelline, right?
Some of those things, and so the lecture series is about the plants, the poisons, what they do, and who used them in what books. Mm-hmm. And so Outlander is like the best. There's like 16 different poisons that show up in that series.
Wow.
So
You stated before that you hate science fiction.
I do.
Why?
Because it's an oxymoron. Science is the truth. Fiction is fiction.
I'll drink to that too. Okay.
I'm trying to understand this.
My host here has this look of complete
But maybe
confusion.
they should say instead of science fiction, maybe science probability or possibility instead of science fiction.
Well, no, fiction is, fiction. It's not factual.
Some science fiction
Yeah.
has a pretty good basis
But
in science.
if I were to tell you in
Like Star Trek.
1967 that you and I will be looking at a phone that will connect you to your neighbor or to your family in Poland instantly, you'd say, okay, take your drugs and go sleep.
Well, I have a better
So
example of
that would be fiction back then.
Yes,
It would be fiction in the
Or even
1700s
actually
to
changing
fly.
the TV channel by
Remotely.
a little box, like
Or
20 feet away.
putting a little toy, a
You'd be
little
burned at the
robot
stake.
on Mars and sending pictures back. But I have an even better example of this. When I do the directing out at Riverhead, the woman whose show I direct for, her name is the name of the show is Phoenix Rising, and she oftentimes has mediums, Wicca people, people who are really into the spirit world and into supernatural things. And I am very open-minded because of what you just said about the phone. If you know anything about string theory or quantum theory, anything is possible.
Anything
Time
is-
travel,
So then,
all of it.
so why be so against science fiction? That's
Well-
why I was like, my eyes rolled back.
But if the science fiction novel is based on good science, then it's good. Like Michael Crichton, his books
like
were,
your last book, there's the DNA. Your DNA background shows up strongly in this book.
Oh, yeah, but that's not science fiction. It's
No,
a
that's
mystery.
science. No, I know.
So yeah, and so does it.
But if Charles Dickens at the time probably would have said that science fiction, that you could take a
Well, how about
strand
Jules
of
Verne?
hair
Jules
or a
Verne.
fingerprint.
I don't. If Dickens was a good reader, he was reading about Mendel and his discoveries because it was
What year
around the
was
same
that?
time. Mendel came out with his peas in 1860.
I think Dickens died before
It
that.
was a little bit but kind of around that
Dickens
time.
was about 1840 or something.
Yeah, but then he, kind of wrote for a few years.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But then you like Stephen King.
I do like Stephen King, but I think Stephen King's a master writer, and I love his characters.
What's your favorite?
My favorite Stephen King is probably The Stand. I loved The Stand. That was really good. And I liked The Shining. The movie was horrible, but the book was really good.
There were two versions of the movie, The Shining. One with Jack Nicholson. I think
Yes.
another was like a TV movie. So
Here's Johnny. Yeah. So
I like the Stand By Me. He did the story for that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, his serious writing, as I said before, he has a book called On Writing, and it's for people who want to write, and it's excellent. He's a great writer.
He is. Yeah. Probably, would you say this generation's most prolific writer? Or this
Maybe.
genre?
Yeah, for that genre, yeah, I think so. And the best loved. And yet I have English teacher friends who absolutely hate him. They don't-
Jealousy?
when you write, it's one thing when you teach English, it's another thing when you write.
Yeah.
As to what you admire and what you see.
Right.
So I don't argue anymore. So ask me about my TV show. Are you going to read from my book?
Your TV show. How about your TV show?
Do you want to read?
Well,
Go ahead.
why don't you read this? This is
From what?
from Secrets
Fairy
in the
Chimneys.
Fairy Chimneys.
want it from here?
And this is the end of that first theme that launches into the rest of the book.
Do you want me to read from here?
Wherever you'd like, yeah.
Give us some passion, okay?
All right. So what happens here is that this pair of twins, they're 12 years old, girl and boy, and they get lost in a cave. They decide to do a little investigating on their own. This is a cave near an archaeological dig where their father is the head archaeologist, and they go into the cave. They're not supposed to, and they get lost. Okay, so they see somebody dropping off some stuff in a cave, and they don't know what's going on. They just want to get out.
First, they thought it was a hunchback, which is pretty cool.
I don't know, but let's get out of here first. Then we can see who this is and what they are up to. What if we have come upon thieves hiding their loot? We can't let them see us. Yelda nodded. That makes sense. Hurry, let's not lose them. The brother and sister followed their cave monster careful to make as little noise as possible. The deep blackness they had experienced in the cave was becoming gray. We must be close to the entrance, whispered Yelda. Ahmet tripped and lost his grip on the flashlight. It clattered to the floor. The light ahead stopped bobbing. Instincts took over, and Yelda and Ahmet flattened themselves behind a rock. They could see a glimmer of daylight ahead, but the figure had decided to investigate the clattering sound. It turned and was coming toward them, lantern searching every nick and cranny.
Ooh, yeah.
Now,
That's
these
the beginning
two
of the book.
precocious twins tried to convince Annie to use a Ouija board to channel Nancy Drew to help to solve the mystery.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Nancy Drew, she's a character. She wasn't real. Come on.
Not to these kids.
That was very, very interesting. Very creative. Very creative.
Now, when you're writing dialogue, okay, for the characters or so, do you actually think in the character's vein? Like some character may not use the same rhythm, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to make, because they're Turkish, and so I tried to make their speech a little stilted.
Right.
Their English, they speak well, but a little stilted. And in one of the books, I have two characters, the maid and the butler, sort of. They're German, and so I go into the V's are W's, the W's are V's, and stuff like that. And Annie is a little flip in the way she speaks. So, and Aunt Jay is very sarcastic. So, yeah.
When you look at the times when you were teaching forensic science, and you still do, right?
Yeah,
You
pretty
still
much.
lecture. I was fascinated. Some of my notes is that you develop the story, clues, create the crime scene. It's really an outline of a book.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Did you get anything this creative? I mean, do you have memorable forensics from any of your students that you could tell us about?
Not really from the students, but from the activities in the classroom. And I do a mystery writers workshop, and the way I do it is I tell them, well, of course you need plot, character, and setting. And that's very important. And you need that first sentence. That's the hardest to write. I said, but when you're writing a mystery story, you have to know how a mystery is solved. So you need to know all of the procedures of the police, the crime lab, the DA. You have to know, what is an indictment.
So do you do the ending first?
Never.
Create the ending?
No.
Do
not
the
really.
endings develop from the story at times?
I sort of know where it's all going to go. So, but I don't really write the ending. I do exactly what I just said.
Yeah.
I create the crime scene. I take the clues. And then, of course, when I'm analyzing the clues, I know where I'm going to send those clues. I know what they're going to prove. And that will bring me to the conclusion. But I do it in that. Because I'm a science person, so I'm pretty organized.
I've seen on TV shows where they have this board that's up, like it's a wall, and they tape things on.
A storyboard, yeah.
A storyboard.
Well, that's like my.
And is that what you do?
Yeah, that's like
How
my
big
Post-it.
is your storyboard?
It's 2 feet by 3 feet.
Ah,
And then sometimes it's the entire floor of my office.
really?
Yeah, I put things out on the floor.
Do you get frustrated sometimes?
No.
No?
I have never really gotten frustrated with any of my books. Once the story is outlined, I'm good to go.
And you studied formally writing, first person, second person, dramatic dialogue.
I'm writing first person. It's all from Annie's point of view, except when Annie's not present, then it has to be third person.
Right.
Yeah.
And
They're usually the bad guys plotting now.
well, or it's Ty doing something. Somebody else is doing something. She's not there. It can't be her voice. So I don't have any trouble with that. I don't have people say, "How do you write dialogue?" I said, "It's the easiest thing in the world. Dialogue. It's what people say." And I've never had any trouble with that. But a lot of my friends really are, they're expository writers, so they don't ever write dialogue. And but it's fun. It's all fun.
Well, let's get to your TV show.
Yes.
When do you do your TV show? And where do you do it?
I do it from LTV in East Hampton. It's a local access studio. It's right next to the East Hampton Airport. And it's a very nice facility. They train you. You cannot do a show, cannot be a producer unless you do the training. You also cannot be a producer and have the show broadcast from that studio unless you have a sponsor who lives in East Hampton. That's the hardest thing for me. because I live in Massapequa. I don't mind driving out there because I get to eat lunch at Sag Harbor. And I've had no problem getting authors. I don't have anybody famous, but that's not my thing. I would like to really give a platform to people like me who are not famous. And what I do is I actually offer them a marketing platform. I ask them to share the studio costs, which is very little. And then I put it on YouTube, and all they have to do is go on YouTube and hit share, and a code comes up, and they copy that, and they can put it on their Facebook page. They can put it on their website. I buy the DVD, they buy the DVD, and then I take the DVD to all 3 Cablevision channels, the local access ones. And so their shows will be cycling through Cablevision long after they're gone from this.
Instance, if it's, let's say, like Cablevision or Optimum,
it's
what
Optimum.
day is it?
Okay, so if you get it from Woodbury,
Right.
if you lived in this area, it would be Tuesday morning at 8:30. If you got it from Hop Hog, it would be Monday morning at 8, and Riverhead is Monday afternoon at 3. So it's all those times, and then I don't even know. I know it's broadcast at LTV almost every day of the week at some time or other. But because I don't live out there, and they only broadcast from East Hampton to Montauk Point.
Right.
You know,
You can't tell.
Well, I can't get it on my TV, and then most of the...
Do they post it on a...
Yes, they have a program. You go on. They have a really nice website. It's a nice
So
facility.
this show is actually broadcast on TuneIn Radio. And
Yeah, we also host it on the Town of Oyster Bay Arts Council
Right.
website.
Oh, that's
So
great.
you can come to this anytime and look it up and tell you if anybody'd like to go onto our website, and then they'll get the full interview.
Can you download a podcast?
I'm not sure. I think you can. It's on SoundCloud. I think you can
Yeah.
download it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then I would put it on my Facebook page.
well, there you go.
Yeah. You
And
can.
then you'll become famous.
That's right. And then we put you on the Facebook page.
Yeah, there you go. We'll
Yeah,
share.
you know, speaking of which, you're paying. I know the drive out through Sag Harbor is gorgeous to East Hampton. I do that when I go out east to Montauk. You know, I don't go.
I go
the
Noyak Road,
Noyak Road, and
114.
114, and then right to Main Street. But okay, that's nice, and there's nice restaurants. But you're paying for it, and why are you doing it?
Basically because I enjoy it. It doesn't cost me that much money, and it allows me to give back. It allows me to do something for other authors. And many times I get a favor in return. And then one of the things I do, I belong to Long Island Authors Group, and I'm one of the people who is the events organizer. So oftentimes I need authors. So then, and then when I do my book launch, I prevail upon these people to come to my book launch. So it's creating a circle of like-minded people who will engage in activities. You know, when you're an author, you really have to decide what you want. If you're going to write a book, you have to decide what you want out of this. Do you want a bestseller? Do you want to tell a story? Do you want to get kids to read your books? Do you want to do workshops? Do you just want a presence in a art community? What do you want?
Do you want to make it into an ebook?
Well, I have
You
my
have
books are in
ebooks,
ebooks and also digital audio. You can get them on Audible. That was fun to do.
The audio.
I did not do the voice. I had somebody do it for me, but it was fun
Was
to
it that
listen
girl
to.
that did?
No, different woman. So you know, it's what I want out of this is I like being part of that writer's culture, and I like.
That seems to be, Gary, the common theme of everyone we've interviewed. There is no monetary. There is, of course, a desire for monetary reward, but that's in the back burner. It's just doing it
And making a difference.
for the art, making a difference.
I mean, when a kid comes up to me and said, "I read your book and I love Annie and I loved your book," that's
Very cool.
That's nice.
like the MasterCard commercial.
I tell you, it's been a pleasure having you
priceless.
in the air, too. You've
Yes,
been listening
thank
to
you.
My Art and Life with Lauren Spiro, Gary Piacentini, and Linda Maria Frank.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we were WCWP 88.1 FM.